we've combined efforts, not the first time, nor will it be our last, on two policy ideas that we've both been working on separately on how we can spur job growth. I think we were all disappointed to see the economic numbers and the job numbers come out in the last month. This recovery seems to be a bit stalled. We in Congress have got to take action, and what we're going to be proposing here today, while not a silver bullet, are a couple of tangible things that we can do to move forward. And I'll make a couple of points, then Congressman Wolf will make a couple of points, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. This effort is, as I mentioned, a combination of legislation that I introduced in the last Congress, and Congressman Wolf introduced already in this Congress, and again, we're combining in a bipartisan and bicameral way, something that's not done enough, Lord knows, in Washington at this point. I'll touch on a couple of the points in the legislation, then Frank will add. As governor, one of the things that we were able to do was compete very successfully against other states around the country in terms of attracting manufacturing and technology jobs to Virginia. Manufacturing jobs pay higher than national average. They are good, solid jobs. Companies have to come in and make a long-term investment. But what we found was that while Virginia could compete against Pennsylvania or against California, that when we were competing against South Korea or Canada or other nations where they were able to add federal support to their local economic development efforts, we sometimes weren't as successful. So our proposal is to create a $5,000 forgivable loan program to add on to existing state and local economic development efforts for those outsourced jobs to be able to actually come back in to the United States of America. This would not duplicate other job creation efforts. It would be simply geared for those companies who are looking for either job choices in America versus another nation. It wouldn't be used to compete against state to state, but it would be that extra little advantage in terms of site location for manufacturing and technology-based jobs that I think is missing in many of our state economic development packages today. It would supplement, again, state and local economic development efforts, and we think could be that extra additive value for manufacturing technology jobs, more than 50 jobs per location, a 5-year forgivable loan so the jobs couldn't come and then leave before the economic development benefits are obtained. A second part of this legislation would work at trying to do a better job of certification for technology and manufacturing skills. One of the things we found, again, in Virginia a number of years back, that oftentimes we were not creating the type of workforce that our industries actually needed. And oftentimes we would push people only towards college-based education when in reality many of the jobs that were required were actually technical jobs that required industry certifications, but those certifications weren't, frankly, far-reaching enough or comprehensive enough in terms of collaboration with our education system. This effort would move forward in this area. A third area would be an effort to try to jumpstart in a small way our export opportunities. 95% of all the new customers for American businesses in the 21st century are not going to be American. They're going to be export opportunities. And quite candidly, we don't do a very good job, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises, to help those companies get opportunities on exports. So this would take a very small initiative pilot program to jumpstart efforts of pre-approved companies between the Export-Import Bank and our Department of Commerce efforts to make sure that we give a little extra help to those companies to see if we can help provide them export opportunities, which again would create American jobs. So those are certain components of this bill. Frank's got some others that he'll add, and I'll turn it over to him at this point, and then we'll be happy to take your questions.
Great. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate this opportunity and to work together on this issue. This is a real job bill, and it's a repatriation, basically. Here's what it does. I'll go through a couple of them. And in the House, we now have 10 co-sponsors. I think we have 6 Republicans and 4 Democrats. It's bipartisan. It would reorient existing federal resources to incentivize the repatriation of jobs in manufacturing and customer services. One of the largest call centers is now out in Reston. They've repatriated back. They think we can do this here, not only in Northern Virginia, but around the country. It would direct the Department of Commerce to fully support state and local efforts to compete for jobs currently located abroad. As Senator Warner said, you're not competing with Pennsylvania. We're competing with China, Mexico, India. Thirdly, it would create repatriation task forces in the Commerce Department with representatives from the private sector, Economic Development Administration, International Trade Administration, and other key offices to support the state and local governments as they attract foreign jobs from China, from India, wherever, back to the United States. These task forces would be a resource for local economic development offices seeking to approach major U.S. companies about repatriation opportunities in their states. The Commerce Secretary, Secretary Locke, recently told me there is no one in the Department of Commerce who is now working on repatriation. Fourth, it would also survey all the American companies about the type of work they're currently doing overseas. Nobody has looked to this to see what is Apple doing, what is GE doing, can those jobs come back there? So it would help local governments better understand their opportunities to match the incentives and the investments to bring the company back. It would also direct the Secretaries of Treasury and Commerce to conduct a joint study of a repatriation tax incentive to lower the barriers. At the federal level, give a major tax break to a company, not in a punishing way, but in a reward way, to incentivize to bring that job back from Mexico, back from China, back from wherever. Also, we're asking the states to look from this study, how could the state of Virginia, Pennsylvania, if they change their tax codes, states can really do this in a major way. Also at no cost, and as chairman of the committee with the jurisdiction and appropriations over the Commerce Department, we're going to put this in. This will be, the Warner-Wolf bill will be in this year's appropriation bill. It would at no new cost, and I stress that, at no new cost, reorient Department of Commerce grants to state and local governments to incentivize the repatriation of jobs. It would make state and local repatriation projects allowable use of federal grant money. If you're a company and you're in Mexico now, American company, you have to hire secure armed guards to take you to your plant. If you're kidnapped, you're not going to call the Mexican Federales, you're going to call the FBI. Those companies ought to begin to come back. In China, if your intellectual property's been compromised, you call the Justice Department, you call the FBI, you call the Commerce Department. They ought to be coming home. If you have an iPad, it's made in China. If you have an iPod, it's made in China. If you have an iPhone, it's made in China. To begin to how we repatriate. Now, these are jobs that are currently being done, but to being done in China, done in India, done in other places, it's time to bring them back here to the United States. And a lot of this that Senator Warner just spoke about will be in the appropriations bill that we're going to be bringing to the floor next month.
Let me just add one more thing before we get to the questions, and that is, one, my thanks to Congressman Wolf for being a leader on this issue, for willingness to, again, both of us have a passion about this. We want to work across both party lines and between the House and the Senate to actually get something done in a Congress where, unfortunately, not a lot of other things are getting done. This has no party label, but the notion that we ought to go after some of these jobs that have gone abroad. Many of these jobs, whether they're call center jobs, back office jobs, manufacturing jobs, 7 or 8 years ago, some of these other countries were more economically competitive. But with the expansion of broadband to some of our rural communities, with, as Congressman Wolf said, some of the added costs, both in terms of intellectual property protection, security concerns, this cost differential. I've had a number of companies say, the cost differential versus outsourcing to India versus rural America has gotten dramatically closer. We're trying to give that extra little push with both these grants, with trying to focus on American companies, on what we can do to incent them to bring some of these jobs back. We think this, as the Congressman said, at a very low cost that will be contained within the Commerce Department budget, can actually produce and show a really ability to leverage a small amount of federal dollars into significant private investment back in the United States.